So this video is for rethinking service delivery for students with significant learning problems, developing and implementing intensive instruction. So the first question talks about the 5 limitations and if we've ever actually experienced them. The 5 limitations look at the instructional programs that don't address what students are facing when it comes to transitioning between primary and intermediate. The second one looks at lack of sufficient comprehension in the strategies or skills they address in these programs. And they don't usually teach for like transferring them. Then the next one is that they are not looking at the linguistic or cognitive limitations that the struggling students actually face. And finally, they don't look at implementation features so that they can actually optimize the intensity of instruction. And I feel like I definitely experienced some of these limitations. For example, implementation of features that can optimize the intensity of instruction. For our curriculum for Common Core, not for our Common Core curriculum, for our special ed curriculum, I don't often get to go through each stage of fidelity. And it's because I either don't have the materials or I didn't understand what I needed to do. And that right there is like a limitation because each phase talks about a specific thing that the student needs for support. And if I have to skip those steps, then it's messed up. Or like transitioning from primary grades to intermediate grades. I usually work with my kids K through 6, but I have not yet met the school that they go to after this, which means I don't get to introduce them to their middle school teachers ahead of time before the transition, which would be really important while they are transitioning. The second question, if SDC classes were eliminated and it was strictly inclusive, do I feel like the strictly inclusive practices could work? I feel like there's a lot of things that are going into the SDC classes, from the speech pathologist to the I can't think of the name. I'm just thinking of like one of our SDC classes, and they have so many people who are going in there from the deaf and hearing services to what is it called when you're working on fine motor skills, starts with an O. It's a person who works with you specifically. A person. Can't think of their name. There's just a lot of things that go on in an SDC class that I think if we were strictly inclusive, those students wouldn't get the services that they would need, and that's important. It states teachers often sometimes believe a student who performs lower has a disability. What if teachers recognize that this was not maybe the case? I think that would be wonderful, personally. I mean, if teachers first thought was there's clearly something wrong with that kid because they don't understand this, that, and the other, and there could be other things. I think that negative connotation that they automatically have would, one, hopefully disappear. Two, it would force them to go outside of their normal teaching habits and work around the student. A lot of things is teacher-centered. Like, I've heard teachers say, if it's not done my way or they don't fit into my program, then the student shouldn't be there. But we should be molding ourselves around the student. So I feel like if we're really looking at it, it should be what the student needs versus what we want. And then like looking at the 5 suggestions for strengthening instructional intensity, we had addressing key problems, broadening instructional content, transferring learning, strengthening language comprehension and executive functioning, and then optimizing intensity. The 2 that I'd like to look at would be the executive functioning one and transferring learning. Because when I'm thinking about transferring learning, I'm thinking not only is it like the stuff that we're doing in the classroom, but how it applies to the student outside of the classroom, which I think would make it easier for the student to remember. So we're not just doing a word problem on if I have 2 Cokes and Jamie has 1 Coke, how many Cokes do we have together? Like something that actually relates to them and how they feel. Like there's that double, like, yes, this is academic, but this is also important to you. I think executive functioning, for me, that's like order and how our students, like, I had, for example, for a student who needed to have a checklist for the things that he needed, so that every day he'd look at this checklist and have the same routine, and it helped him academically get organized. I feel like that's something we really, really need to watch more for our students, because I go through my students' bags sometimes. Well, I don't go through their bags, but like I'll see them going through their bags and they can't find anything, and they're like, oh, I can't find my homework, or I can't turn anything in. And it's like, okay, well, if they're not able to do this, but we have that expectation that they do need to do this, then we need to be teaching it. But we're so busy trying to do A, B, and C that D often gets forgotten. We need to make sure that everything comes full circle.